And so we're on the staff meeting agenda and the topics, and this particular topic is training. And it is an unbelievable, huge topic. And these are the major factors that we will pay attention to. Number one, individual events by position. So remember, each position in a chiropractor's in almost any business has what are called primary and secondary and tertiary responsibilities, things that are way more important to that particular job, and then things that aren't very important that are shared by everybody in the office, okay? So what we want to definitely do with staff, and I am really big into educating staff in many, many ways, and this is a classic example. You want to teach your staff the 4 stages of training. You want to make sure your staff understands exactly how training happens, because there will be a lot of frustration when staff members don't know the 4 stages of training. There'll be frustration on the doctor's part and the staff member's part, because the staff member would not have been trained right if the doctor doesn't know how to train based on the 4 stages of learning. So when he doesn't train right, the staff member doesn't perform well. So the doctor gets frustrated, and staff members don't like to not perform well. Everybody would like to perform well. So you have to teach the 4 stages of training. And so in simplicity, we take every subject. So whether it's answering the phone, how to collect money, how to schedule an appointment, all the core components of running an office have to be trained. And they have to go through 4 stages. So the first stage is unconscious incompetence, when somebody doesn't even know that something needs to be done. Well, that's typically book seminars and tapes. Now, what should happen in your office is you should already have your manual, number 1. Number 2, you already have other staff members everybody should be cross-trained. Everybody should know everybody else's job, but not be responsible for everybody else's job. So the first typical level of training when they come in is I'll give them the manual of their job position, of what's called their primary responsibility. Or I'll have the other staff member teach them their primary responsibility. That's typically what will happen first. It typically will not start with me, okay? Now, that takes them to conscious incompetence. So now they know what needs to be done, but they can't do it. And this is why it's so important that they understand role playing. They have to understand sensory and motor and repetition. They have to. That's what creates muscle memory. And so that is the most important part of training, is going from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. And that's what takes role playing and repetition. And staff members need to know this. I mean, I would literally say to my staff members, they would only know a certain amount of material, whether it was answering the phone or how to collect money or how to schedule a patient or whatever it was. And I'd say, well, it sounds like you're maybe at, a conscious competence level. It sounds like you're not at a black belt level, or you're not at the unconscious competence level. In other words, I'm reminding them, and I want them to be aware that we know where you are in this training cycle. Therefore, we know what next steps to take, or the next steps that need to be taken. This is unbelievably important. Your staff understand the 4 stages of training. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of disappointment. And it's so important the doctor understand how to train based on the 4 stages. So we'll do a lot of sensory and motor. And then for the conscious competence, we'll do a lot of repetition and stat evaluation. And then from there, once they can do it, but they're not real good at it, we'll look at the stats. And then from there, once they're at unconscious competence, all I do now is I monitor that specific statistic. That's all I do. And that's what happens at the staff meeting. I go, okay, so in other words, we take their competence level up in their primary responsibilities to unconscious competence. In other words, they're a black belt at it. That's where we want to take it. And then I monitor the statistic. Show me that statistic every week, what's called the primary statistic. That's what tells me the 3 components. Do they get bonus? Do they need Are they doing average, or do they need more training? That's what it tells me. And that way I don't have to know anything else. Show me your stat. I don't have to look over your shoulder, and I can't look over your shoulder. I'm in the back treating patients. So make sure that a lot of these categories we cover, we teach the staff, same with personality profiles. We teach the staff. We make sure the more they know, the better things are. It creates a whole lot less chaos. So make sure you're familiar with the 4 stages and how to train, and make sure your staff members are quite aware of the different categories to get to unconscious competence, and they're all not the same. They're not just, here's the manual, look at it, and be good at it. And that's what most doctors do. Here, go over it, or did go over it with you, and then the doctor thinks they should be a black belt at it. No, that's the doctor's fault. He was totally ignorant to the 4 stages to get somebody to their skill level high. And so it is not just, here, read the book and go do it, and then you're going to be good at it, and you're going to satisfy me, and you're going to be satisfied. It will not work that way. Now, here's the other part of this, and this is what takes a lot of training in the beginning, is that there's about 8 unique days in a chiropractor's office in the systems that we train. There's the phone procedure. Essentially, there's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Then there's a regular visit. Then there's the pre-re-exam visit, the exam visit, and then the post-re-exam report visit. So there's about 8 unique days, and you have to know this. And so these are the common questions and responses. First of all, everybody should know how to answer the phone, how to do the menu and answer a phone. Every staff member should know how to schedule a patient. Everybody, and that should be at a black belt level. But here's what should happen that doesn't happen a lot. And if you do this, it will unbelievably increase your efficiency and eliminate so many problems. And here's what you have to do: is in each unique day, like the new patient day 1, you have to follow each patient interaction with that patient. What should happen at each station when that new patient comes through? When they come in and through the office, and when they leave the office. What should happen at the front desk on the phone when they call in? When the person comes in, what should happen when they come in? What should be every sequence of interaction? This is what should happen. So your staff members know with high certainty quality service, instead of everybody just kind of thinking how it should be done. And I see this almost never being done in offices. And we spent an unbelievable amount of time training staff in this, that everybody knew exactly what should happen with that particular patient on a particular day with whichever station they were interacting with. As an example, so I'm talking about 8 days. So what should happen on the phone on day 1? And in order, what should happen? Now they come in. What should happen in order with the communication from the front desk? Now they come back. What should happen with the doctor? When the doctor leaves, where do they go next? To the next station. Typically it's over to therapy. What should the therapy person say? From there, they go out to the front. What should the front desk person say? See, that's the flow. That every interaction with the patient for each of the 8 unique days, it should be a walkthrough. And everybody should know exactly what's happening with each unique day, with each station. In other words, the front desk person should know what should happen on a day 2 at the end of therapy. Well, Mary, what's going to happen at the end of therapy when the patient, if I say to my front desk person, what's going to happen at the end of therapy? How should that person interact with that patient? What's the order of interaction? That's what should happen. And this is what creates unbelievably high efficiencies. Now, in addition to that, You have to know two things. You got to know the patient's, each staff member needs to know two things at all times without ever interrupting another staff member. What is the patient's treatment schedule? Every staff member should know exactly what that patient's treatment schedule is without having to stop and go up to the front desk or stop the doctor and say, "Doctor, when do you want to see Mary next?" I can't believe how many times I see that. That should never happen. And what should happen is there should be a unique place that's defined. Like when I was practicing, it was on their chart. It was a paper chart, and it was right on the front of their paper chart in the lower third, left-hand side. Every staff member knew that that's where you look to see their treatment schedule, and that's exactly where you look to see where the patient is at with payment, what type of payment category, and are they paid or not. Those are the two factors every staff member should know about every patient without having to ask anybody. In other words, it's written down in that one area that everybody knows where to look and they know how to interpret it. And that cleans up a lot of issues, because one of the worst things you can happen is the patient turn to the therapy go, "When's the doctor want to see me again?" "Well, I don't know. Wait a minute, Mary." So now she can't do anything. Everything stops there. Now she's got to go up and stop the doctor. Doctor can't do anything now. See, you never want that kind of stuff happening in your office. When that happens, you need to consider it a failure and immediately train that in so that stops, because that's going to decrease your productivity. And these are the kind of things that you don't notice when you're seeing 60 visits a week because you're going too slow. Everything's moving too slow. But these are the exact kind of things that will totally limit you from seeing 150 or 200 visits a week. Because you can't go at that pace with those kinds of systems. They'll totally inhibit you from going there. It doesn't matter if a ton of new patients are dumped in your office. You'll backlog everything and run them off. So I cannot impress upon you the importance that every staff member know exactly what to say to that patient. What is the 2 or 3 point flow chart of what happens at the end of day 2 when the patient leaves the doctor and goes to the therapist? What's the 2 or 3 bullet point that therapist should say right now? That's how good it should be trained in. And then when the patient's finished with therapy, what's the 2 or 3 bullet points that therapist should say right now? When they go to the front, end of day, let's say it's the end of day 3, they go to the front. That front desk should know exactly the 2 or 3 bullet points that need to happen or need to be said to that patient right now. And then the same thing with money. Everybody should be able to look at that treatment card, not only determine the treatment schedule so they can just tell the patient without stopping everything, and also reinforce the treatment schedule, but also with money. Did they pay? Did they pay? Did they prepay? What's the cost per visit for that patient? In other words, those are common issues. Remember, time and money. Time and money are the 2 big obstacles you and your staff have to be black belts at. And you have to know them for all categories. You got to know them for cash, Medicare, major medical, personal injury, workers' comp. You got to know them for all 5 payment categories. You got to know time and money. When I say time, treatment schedule, how to know the treatment schedule when they're coming, how to interpret where it's at, how to interpret it so you can just reinforce it without stopping everybody else. Same with money. Did they pay? What kind of paying patient is it? What's their personal responsibility, and did they prepay? And so every one of my staff member knew that because we wrote it down. It was in one location, and everybody knew when to write their part into that location. And so nobody ever had to stop and ask another person. That was considered a complete failure. There was no way I could see 350 patients a week or 100 visits a day by other staff members stopping and having to stop other staff members and ask about money and time. When somebody coming back? There's no way. And by the way, that's bad service. It's real bad service. So, in conclusion with that, each staff member should know the 2, 3, or 4 bullet points of what is the patient's interaction at that particular point, at that particular day, whether the patient's coming in or leaving. And every staff member should know the other staff members. Your therapy should know the front desk. She should know what the front desk is going to say on day 2 when the patient leaves. And she should know an order. This is how efficient it should be. This is the training that happens.